Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गो गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you are welcome for today's
Hare
class.
Krishna.
How are you?
Doing pretty good. And yourself?
We are surviving.
Hare Krishna.
So I put the verse on the screen so we can start.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today's class is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, text number 36. 1-8-36. Shrinvante Gayante Grinante Abhikshanashaha Smarante Nandante Tavahitam Janaha Ta Eva Pashanti Achirena Tavakam Bhava Pravaho Paramam Padam Bujam Shrinvante Gayante Grinante Abhikshanashaha Smarante Nandante Tavahitam Janaha Ta Eva Pashanti Achirena Tavakam Bhava Pravaho Paramam Padam Bujam Shrinvante Gayante Grinante Abhikshanashaha Smarante Nandante Tavahitam Janaha Ta Eva Pashanti Achirena Tavakam Bhava Pravaho Paramam Padam Bujam. Synonyms. Shrinvanti, hear. Gayanti, chant. Grinanti, take. Abhikshnashaha, continuously. Smaranti, remember. Nandanti, take pleasure. Tava, your. Ihitam, activities. Janaha, people in general. They. Eva, certainly. Pashyanti, can see. Achirena, very soon. Tabakam, yo. Bhava Pravaha, the current of rebirth. Uparamam, cessation. Padambujam, lotus feet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Mishra Prabhupada. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. It's very beautiful and reassuring. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Purport. The Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, cannot be seen by our present conditional vision. In order to see him, one has to change his present vision by developing a different condition of life, full of spontaneous love of Godhead. When Sri Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Shishupal were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. The necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the popular literatures which are generally heard, chanted, repeated, etc. by the people in general. But in spite of such hearing, etc., sometimes it is experienced that the performer of such devotional service does not see the Lord face to face. The reason is that the first item, Shravana, is very important. If hearing is from the right sources, it acts very quickly. Generally, people hear from unauthorized persons. Such unauthorized persons may be very learned by academic qualifications, but because they do not follow the principles of devotional service, hearing from them becomes a sheer waste of time. Sometimes the texts are interpreted fashionably to suit their own purposes. Therefore, first one should select a competent and bona fide speaker and then hear from him. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes become automatically perfect in their own way. There are different transcendental activities of the Lord, and each and every one of them is competent to bestow the desired result, provided the hearing process is perfect. In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from his dealings with the Pandavas. There are many other pastimes of the Lord in connection with his dealings with the Asuras and others. And in the 10th canto, the sublime dealings with his conjugal associates, the gopis, as well as with his married wives at Dwaraka, are mentioned. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes, people in an unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination dictates the lusty feelings of the hearer. So a bona fide speaker of the dealings of the Lord never indulges in such hearings. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scriptures, and that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development. One should not therefore consider that his dealings with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to all mundane attachment. In all the above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances, and hearing about him or about his devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and Puranas, etc., are all made to revive our lost relation with him, Krishna. Hearing of all these scriptures is essential. Hearing of all these scriptures is essential. Om Ajana Timarandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshu Anmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakatamayam Dadati Swapadantekam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabanda Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusati Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Vanchakalpataribhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swamin Eti Namine. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Tatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Eti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavade Paschatya Deshatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So the text says, O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities or take pleasure in others doing so certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Well, I once again welcome you all to today's class. It's very interesting how almost every time there is somebody speaking from any of our scriptures, once they read the translation, the text, they oftentimes say, this is a very beautiful verse. It's a very important verse. And I cannot afford not to say this is a very, very important verse. Because here Mother Kunti is giving us a hint as to how we can put a permanent stop to this cycle of samsara, this repeated birth and death. And in the translation, Mother Kunti is telling us the secret by which we can end this samsara. And what is the secret? The secret is if one continuously hears, chants, and repeats the transcendental activities of the Lord. There are key words here. Not just hearing, chanting, and repeating the transcendental activities of the Lord, but she says continuously. And Lord Krishna himself also says in the Gita that those who continuously repeat my glories, in that particular text, Sri Krishna uses the word satatam. Satatam means continuously. And so here, Mother Kunti is repeating almost the same thing, that those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat the transcendental activities of the Lord. Well, if one cannot hear, if one cannot chant, if one cannot repeat the transcendental activities of the Lord, but if one can take pleasure in seeing one hearing, chanting, and repeating the glories, the transcendental glories of the Lord, that in itself also gives one the key to end this cycle of samsara. This is also beautiful, that as devotees, when we try to work in such a way that others have the mercy and the glory of the Lord, we also benefit from it. Not just us making it, but when we help others to have the mercy of Krishna, we also get the mercy of Krishna. How beautiful that is. In the material sense, when I work and you help me get the job, but you do not work, you do not get the benefit I receive. I alone enjoy the proceeds. But that is not the case in spiritual life. In spiritual life, if I help someone get a job and get a good pay, I share the same credit with that individual. How beautiful that is. So when we hear and chant and repeat the transcendental activities of the Lord, or we take pleasure in seeing others do so, certainly, that is also a very important word here. Mother Kunti says, certainly, one will see the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So seeing the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is the surest way of ending this repetition of birth and death. And here again, Mother Kunti says, the lotus feet of the Lord alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. She did not say the lotus face. She did not say the beautiful head, the beautiful forehead, the beautiful Kostaba jewel. She never said that. She said the lotus feet. That means that when we approach the Lord in a very humble state of mind, that is how we attain Krishna. Um, I've come to know Radhanath Maharaj for quite some time now, and his key preaching is be humble as the blade of grass, as Lord Chaitanya taught us. When we become as humble as blade of grass and approach the Lord, starting from the lotus feet, it's beautiful in the sense that in devotional life, there is a technique, there is a technology that we have to imbibe and apply. And when we imbibe and apply this technology, that is how we most likely going to be successful. Because if we do not apply the technology, if we do not apply the technique and just practice it anyhow, we're not going to be successful. It is said that spiritual life is spiritual and scientific. It is scientific in the sense that there is a method, there is a process that has to be followed. And if one does not follow the process, if one does not follow the procedure or the method given by the acharyas, then it's very difficult to be successful in the practice. And what are some of the techniques? The techniques is that when you go to the temple room to pay darshan to the deities, you see the deity standing on the altar. Obviously, you're looking at the deities, but you have to start looking at the deities from the lotus feet. You start looking at the feet, you go to the legs, to the knees, to the thighs, to the groin, to the belly, to the chest, to the neck, before you go to the face. That is a sign of humility, that you're not even qualified to see the Lord. And so you start from the feet, the lotus feet. And so here, Mother Kunti is saying that those who have the mercy and the blessings of touching the lotus feet of the Lord, seeing the lotus feet of the Lord, that is the surest way of ending the cycle of repeated birth and death that we all go through in this material world. Whenever there is a saintly person and one approaches this saintly person to have mercy, nobody touches the forehead, nobody touches the head. Everybody touches the lotus feet, because that is where the mercy is. Because when you touch the lotus feet, it's a sign that you are ready to serve. It's a service attitude. Now, coming to the purport of His Divine Grace, Sri Prabhupada. He says the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna cannot be seen by our present condition, our conditional vision. In order to see him, one has to change his present vision by developing a different condition of life full of spontaneous love of Godhead. It's interesting how Sri Prabhupada wrote this sentence. He includes himself amongst the people who cannot see the Supreme Lord face to face. He says the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, cannot be seen by our present conditional vision. But we know that Sri Prabhupada is not a person with a conditional vision. This is a very humble sign of the founder Acharya. He includes himself amongst the conditioned souls, but he's not. And again, he says, our present conditional vision, which is these two eyes we have, is not equipped to see the Supreme Lord. Oftentimes, people will argue, says, if God exists, show him to me. I want to see him. The question is, do you have the eyes to see him? It's just like somebody would say, if you saying that there is a virus called coronavirus, prove it to me, show it to me, let me see it. But with our two eyes, we cannot see coronavirus. But by the grace and the intervention of a very good electronic microscope, then we can see the coronavirus. And even with the help and assistance of electronic microscope, if you are not trained to identify what the coronavirus is, you cannot see it, even with the help of the electronic microscope. And so, to the next sentence, Srila Prabhupada says, when Sri Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, even though we may have the coronavirus right before our eyes under the microscope, we still cannot see it as coronavirus. Because in order for us to see the virus as coronavirus, there are many viruses. In order for us to pinpoint that this virus is coronavirus, we have to be trained. And so Srila Prabhupada is saying that even though Lord Krishna, who cannot be seen with our two gross eyes, manifested, appeared as human before the eyes of all human beings, that anybody with two eyes can see him, yet not everybody could see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How and why so? Srila Prabhupada explains. Srila Prabhupada explains that materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupal were all highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. And what is the necessary vision? Srila Prabhupada explains, the necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. Because just as I was giving the analogy of the coronavirus, in order for one to understand that this virus I'm seeing under the electronic microscope is coronavirus, means that that person has been trained by experts how to identify different viruses. Just as a trained person can identify different birds, that when you see this bird, you know that a bird is any creature with wings that flies. But there are different types of birds. We have eagle, we have owl, we have hawk. If you do not know the difference between a hawk and an owl, and you saw an owl, you're most likely going to mistake it to be a hawk or an eagle. But one who knows the differences between these birds, when he sees one particular bird, he can identify rightly that this bird is eagle, this bird is owl, this bird is this bird is that. So if one knows the differences in different viruses, the word corona is a particular shape. And so when you see the virus having that particular shape called corona, then you can clearly say that this is coronavirus. And so when we know the attributes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then when we see the person Krishna, then we can identify that, yes, this is Krishna. For example, people may ask you, do you are a Krishna people, you believe in God, you would say God is a person, but can you show me who is God? And you show him the image of Krishna. The first question is, how can you tell me this little girl is Krishna? Because how this little girl is God. You cannot be serious. Even though the person is seeing Krishna, but he still cannot understand that this is Krishna because he doesn't know the qualities and the attributes of Krishna. It's just like if somebody says, okay, I've heard that diamond is a very precious gem, very precious stone. I want to buy diamond. And then you sell him a diamond. The person holds diamond in the palm of his hand and says, so this tiny little gem you gave me, I don't even know if it's gem, cost me this much money? Because a small point, like a dot of diamond, could cost you like thousands of dollars. Then you ask, why is it that this small thing cost me this much money? Say, yes, because it's a gem. Say, no, I don't believe this is diamond. And so once there was one king called King Crunch, who went into the forest just to have free time to enjoy himself. And then he got somehow lost. And so there was darkness coming. The sun was going down. And he saw a light coming from somewhere within the forest. So he walked towards it. And when he walked towards the light, he saw that there was a valley, more so like a pit. And that was where the light was coming from. And when he looked down into the pit, he saw somebody sitting there in a lotus meditating. So he moved forward and then spoke to whomever was having meditation. He offered his obeisances and asked who he was. But before he could even ask who he was, he looked down and he saw this person with no arms, no legs. So he spoke to him, he said to him, my dear saintly person, what brought you into this pit? And do you need help? How may I help you? So this saintly person said, yes, I'm stuck in this pit. I have no legs. I have no arms. So there is no way I'll be able to get out of this pit. So King Crunch said, no problem. I can get you out of this pit. So he got him out of this pit. And then when he got him out of this pit and he realized clearly that this person did not have feet, did not have arms, he asked him, he says, what happened? What's your name? He says, my name is Jayadev. He says, what happened? That you have no legs, you have no arms. He says, I have no legs, I have no arms because I was born that way. So King Crunch realized that he has found a saintly person. And it is beneficial for him to hear from a saintly person. So as a king, he was already carried in a palanquin. So he got off his palanquin and asked Jayadev to be carried in the palanquin. So Maharaj Jayadev was carried in the palanquin and was sent to the city. And so the king announced to all his ministers that I have found a single person, and from today forward, everybody must take shelter of this single person. So everybody was taking shelter of this single person. And anytime anybody came to pay homages to this single person, the king will also bless this individual by giving him material goods like jewelry, food, scriptures, everything. Everything you ask for from this king, once you came to pay darshan to this Jayadev, no legs, no arms, he will give you blessings in that way, materially. And so this became very well known, and uh, lots of people, devotees, heard that there is a saintly Swami in the kingdom of King Crunch. And anytime you visited Maharaj Jayadev and King Crunch will both bless you. So devotees were going. And actually, King Crunch asked Jayadev, because Jayadev had asked King Crunch to serve the devotees of the Lord. So King Crunch asked Jayadev Maharaj, how do I identify who is a devotee of the Lord? So Jayadev Maharaj told King Crunch, externally, you will see some symbols that it tells you this person is a saintly person. And it says, first thing, you will see 3 lines on the forehead. And he specifically said 3 lines that are very perpendicular. In other words, you see 1, 2, 3 lines. And you also see a neck bead around the neck of the individual. And you also see that particular individual chanting the holy names of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. These are the externals. And he says, I'll tell you the internal, but not now. So when the devotees would come, and of course, devotees were dressed with the tilak, Lord Vishnu tilak, with Kantimala. And so he knew that these are devotees. And so it became so known up to the point that there were 3 thieves who also heard that this is what is going on in the kingdom of King Crunch. That King Crunch, anytime anybody visits as a devotee, gives them so many gifts. And so these 3 thieves also dressed themselves as devotees and approached King Crunch so that they will serve Maharaj Jayadev, so that they also be blessed by the Maharaj, and King Crunch also gives them material needs. They were not necessarily in need of any blessings from Maharaj Jayadev, but they were more interested in getting material needs from King Crunch. So when these 3 thieves approached Maharaj Jayadev, then Maharaj Jayadev recognized them. Because even though Maharaj Jayadev had told King Crunch that he was born with no legs, no arms, that was not the fact. The fact was that he was born with arms and legs. But he was once attacked by these 3 crooks, thieves, who beat him up mercilessly, cut off his arms, cut off his legs, and threw him in the pit. And so when Maharaj Jayadev immediately saw them, he recognized them. and pretended to have given them his blessings and called the king Crunch and told King Crunch how he happened to have lost his legs and arms, and told King Crunch, these are the people responsible for me not having legs and arms. And so you can imagine what the king did to these three thieves. So what I'm trying to say is that it's so important to hear the glories of Sri Krishna. And because it's so important, King Crunch understood that the right person to hear these glorious pastimes of the Lord from is Maharaj Jayadev. Why? Because he saw the light that was emanating from him. It is said that his whole body was full of refulgence, which is like he was emanating light that cannot be described in the material sense. So he knew this person was not an ordinary person. And so he wanted to hear from him. And so he brought him to the city so that everybody can hear from him. And he did not just want to hear from him without anybody hearing from him. He also created the situation whereby people all over the world, all over around his kingdom, can come and hear from Maharaj Jayadev. So that is the importance of hearing from the right sources. Because when we hear from the right sources, for example, hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, nectar of devotion, nectar of instructions, teachings of Queen Kunti, teachings of Kapila. When we hear from all these scriptures, from the right sources, from the right people, who are the right people, those who have surrendered their lives to serving Guru and Krishna, especially under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, then there is the chance, the great possibility that we can see the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And when we see the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, then we are guaranteed of ending the cycle of birth and death in this particular lifetime. Again, therefore, according to Srila Prabhupada, he says, the Bhagavad Gita is one of the popular literatures which are generally heard, chanted, repeated, etc. by the people in general. But in spite of such hearing and etc., sometimes it is experienced that the performer of such devotional service does not see the Lord face to face. And Srila Prabhupada is giving the reason. The reason is that the first item, Shravana, hearing, is very important. If hearing from the right sources, it acts very quickly. If you hear from the right sources, it acts very quickly. Why so? Why? Because Krishna is absolute. And because Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between himself as a person, Krishna, and his name, Krishna, and his words, and his paraphernalia. Anything in connection to Krishna is as good as Krishna himself. In other words, Bhagavad Gita. In fact, I heard one devotee preaching, and he was saying, one time Srila Prabhupada was saying that it's very important that every devotee reads from his books at least 2 hours a day. And some devotees were saying, Srila Prabhupada, 2 hours a day. Probably we might not be able to read 2 hours a day daily. So Srila Prabhupada says, if you cannot read 2 hours a day, just read a chapter of any of the scriptures. Just read a chapter of Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita a day. If you cannot read a chapter a day, just read one verse. If you cannot read one verse, just read the translation. If you cannot read the translation, read the purport. If you cannot read the purport, just read one sentence. If you cannot read one sentence, just read one word. And if you cannot read a word, just read one letter. Isn't that beautiful? So today we have already chanted the Sanskrit slokas, which is also so beneficial because when one chants the Sanskrit, it's very important that one chants these Sanskrit verses because it's so purifying. And that is why it's very important that when one joins devotional service, initially, in fact, Srila Prabhupada says that in the purport, that initially, this hearing must be introduced to the neophyte devotees, that we give them the taste. That hearing is so joyful, it's so tasty that I always want to hear. Because usually what you start the devotional service with is what stays with you. If you started devotional service with the interest of hearing the scriptures, you will have that taste throughout your devotional life. If you started the devotional service with the taste of chanting, singing, dancing, you have that taste throughout your devotional life. If you started enjoying and taking pleasure in distributing literatures, books, you have that taste. And so temple presidents and the leadership in all our temples should instill in the devotees the importance of hearing. Because Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that the most important thing in all the 9 processes of devotional service is hearing. And once we hear from the right sources, everything else that is needed for our spiritual growth automatically flows. That is the technique. Once we have our hearing well grounded in our spiritual pursuit, everything else that is needed for our spiritual upliftment, our spiritual growth, will be given. Just like Christ said, just love God, serve God, and everything else that you need will be given. Once we start taking pleasure in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, everything else will be provided. And Srila Prabhupada was saying that when we hear the pastimes of the Lord and his associates, the devotees of the Lord, and even the Asuras, like Hiranyakashipu, who attempted to kill his own son, Hiranyaksha, who got so bad and wanted to kill Lord Vishnu. When we hear the pastimes of all these transcendents from the right sources, that is how we attain the lotus feet of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada said, which to me is one of the most important lessons every devotee of ISKCON will have to imbibe and keep at the back of our heads, that Srila Prabhupada is saying it that since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes people in an unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination indicates the lasting feelings of the hearer. I hope you all heard Srila Prabhupada loud and clear. There are some devotees in ISKCON and outside of ISKCON who think and believe that until one speaks of the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis, one is not an advanced devotee. But Srila Prabhupada condemns such act because when one engages in such hearing, it is an indication of how lusty the hearer of such pastimes is. Those who are really, really lusty, they are so quick and eager to hear the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis. And that is why it is designed in such a way that we are taught to see the Bhagavatam as the image, the body of Krishna, whereby the canto 1 is the feet, the canto 10 is the head, the face of Krishna. 11 and 12 is the crown of Krishna. So people, instead of looking at the lotus feet as Mother Kunti said in the translation, the lotus feet alone ends the cycle of repetition of birth and death, not the lotus face, not lotus head. And so when we start from canto 1 and gradually get it to canto 10, that is when and how we can relish the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis. But some devotees are so quick to jump to canto 10 and speak about Krishna and the gopis to prove how advanced they are spiritually. But Srila Prabhupada condemns it. Because Srila Prabhupada says that Sri Krishna is absolute and there is no difference between any of his pastimes. There is no difference between the pastimes he had with the Pandavas, the pastimes he had with Jarasandha, the pastimes he had with the gopis, the pastimes he had with the wives in Dwaraka. No difference. But those who are lustful and lusty, they are so eager to hear the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis. So we may not be so eager to hearing, chanting, or remembering the pastimes of the Lord, but at least we should take pleasure in seeing others do that. Because when we have pleasure in seeing people hearing the pastimes of the Lord, chanting the glories of the Lord, and remembering all the pastimes or any of the pastimes of the Lord, the hearer, the chanter, and the person remembering the pastimes of the Lord shares the same mercy with us who are also having the pleasure of seeing this person enjoy hearing, chanting the pastimes of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada, I can't re-emphasize it much, but Srila Prabhupada says that hearing is the most important of all the 9 processes. Srila Prabhupada gives many analogies and examples that when you are asleep, your eyes may be closed, you are asleep. But when a thief enters into your house, the first sense that helps you understand there is a thief in the house is your ears, not your eyes. You hear somebody come in. And then just by hearing somebody come in, you can get up and arm yourself and protect yourself. So we are so fortunate that we are given all these transcendental literatures that are not different from Krishna, that just by seeing the scriptures, just by hearing from the scriptures, just by reading the scriptures, just by hearing others speak the glories of these pastimes of the Lord, we are slowly but surely moving towards the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And so our success, the success of ending the repetition of birth and death, is guaranteed. Hare Krishna. Any question, any comment? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for your class. My question is in the purport, Prabhupada mentioned the demons or the materialistic people like Kamsa, Yakashipo, Jarasandha. So my question is, because he mentioned that without devotion, no one can see Krishna. These people, they know his God. So my question is, but these people, they still get liberation from Krishna. Krishna killed them and give them liberation. But devotees have to go through thousands of lifetimes to get liberation. So it seems that to be a demon is easier way to attain Krishna than being a devotee. What do you say to that?
Hare Krishna, thank you. I had been saying this for quite some time and now, because I realized that, well, if being a devotee is too difficult to attain the lotus feet of Krishna, then why don't I become a demon? Because demons ultimately also attain liberation. And then I also realized that it is much easier to be a devotee than to be a demon, because we can all understand what sort of austerities that these demons had to perform. We all know how much austerities Hiranyakashipu performed. He wanted to become God until Lord Brahma appeared to him. And he asked for all these boons. He had all these boons. Now we have to ask ourselves if we are able to perform such austerities, which I doubt most of us can. We cannot. That is first thing. Second thing is that Krishna gives them liberation. Yes. But Krishna does not just give devotees liberation, because as devotees, we understand that we are already liberated. So it is said that the devotional service starts where liberation ends. And so when these demons get liberation, they still haven't attained the highest thing. The highest thing is devotional service. In fact, they said that there are two types of transcendentalists. We have the personalists and the impersonalists. So the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, as much as we may lash out against them or whatever, they are transcendentalists. But they are transcendentalists who do not want to serve God. They do not want to serve Krishna. And so when they are attaining liberation, they are kept in the Brahman effulgence, just to be there and be blissful without rendering any service. But devotees who are personalists, when they are attaining liberation, they are promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where they have the opportunity to render service to the Supreme Lord. And as living entities, our prime nature is to serve. And so even though these Mayavad transcendentalists who have attained liberation may be enjoying themselves in the Brahman effulgence, but that is not the highest sense of enjoyment, because they are not serving. And we see in this world that everybody serves. If you do not serve God, you're going to serve your dog. If you do not serve, somebody is going to serve you. And so our original nature is that of service. And so, yes, Krishna liberates even the demons that fight against him, but he only liberates them. He does not give them devotional service as he gives devotional service to somebody like Mother Yashoda. Like the service given to Mother Yashoda is not the blessings and the benedictions Mother Yashoda has. It's not the same as the mercy Lord Krishna gave to Putana. Putana was liberated, but the mercy and the benediction is not the same. Well, I tried to speculate as much as I know, but I have other senior devotees here who can also add it to what I said if they
Thank you,
need
Prabhu.
me.
But you know that Prabhupada mentioned that when someone is sick, it does not really matter whether he voluntarily take the medicine or not. When given medicine, the medicine will work and heal the person.
Yes.
So the same way with the Vedas, the scriptures. These demons, they study the scriptures, they quote the scriptures, even though they don't believe in the supremacy of God, of Krishna. Why
Yes.
is the scripture not acting like the medicine?
Oh, that's also a very good question. Because Srila Prabhupada also said in the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually has said, I don't know whether it is Srila Prabhupada who said or Krishna said and Srila Prabhupada gave purport, but Srila Prabhupada has been quoting this many times that everybody knows that milk is nectar, right? But again, we also understand from the teachings that milk, when it's touched by the lips of a serpent, becomes poisonous. And so devotees should avoid hearing about Krishna from envious people. Because, well, like you said, when you give medication to somebody, whether the person knows that this medicine is going to cure him or not, it's still going to cure him. But it's not the same. In the sense that, thank God I can speak on this front from experience. Because sometimes I may have somebody who is sick, right? Somebody who has pain. And then this person will tell me that I have pain. Listen to this. You tell me I have pain. And I know, usually in medicine, it is said that pain is what the patient says it is. In other words, I cannot tell what is going on within another person's body. So when the person says he has pain, that is what it is. You have to treat it as such. But if you somebody who's been working with a particular patient and you know how that person is, some people are addicted to certain medication. You know? So if that person is addicted to a particular medication and you give that pain medicine to the person, the next moment, like next 30 minutes, he says, I have another pain. Well, you can concoct something, not medicine, but you give to that person that, okay, this is your pain medicine. But the mere fact that you mention to the person that this is your pain medicine, you give that concoction to that person, he takes it and the pain goes away. It has been proven scientifically and medically that almost 70% of our ailments starts from the mind, starts from our psyche. In other words, many people may claim that they have pain, but oftentimes it is from their mind. If you're able to tune the mind in such a way that you do not start thinking that you have pain, the pain goes away. Lots of the time, pain medicine that we take, what does the pain does? It's beautiful. And what does the medicine does? All the medicine does is that in our human brain, there is a portion where it's considered to be the point of pain sensation. And so when one takes pain medicine, the medicine is designed in such a way that the medicine goes into our body and then tricks the mind that the pain is no more there. It closes the gate where the pain sensation goes through back and forth. That, okay, I'm having this pain. It goes in and it shuts it off. And so the actual cause of the pain is still there, but your mind tells you that the pain is not there. And so, yes, even when you do not consciously know that this is medicine for pain, it's still going to help you. But when you know that this is pain medicine, its effectiveness is much faster and swifter. And that is why Srila Prabhupada says, well, once you hear in the scriptures, it's not all waste, but the desired result will not be there as expected. So you are right that once you read from the scriptures, even mundanely, even if you have any bad reasons why you are reading, it's not loss. But the desired result, the desired effect will not be there. It will take much longer. Hare
Okay, thank you. Next question is from George Omega.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
George Omega, unmute your mic.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the wonderful class. So one thing I cherish about Hare Krishna is about you are the most person who used to ask questions, and today you are the one sitting in answering the question. Back in the days when I joined ISKCON, actually this is the one thing that attracted me. That they used to change the speakers. Today someone sitting while a question is being asked, then he answered. The next day he is the one to ask the question. So today we are going to throw the questions to you. So Hare Krishna Prabhu, my question is, often Srila Prabhupada used to use the word bona fide. So often we don't directly relate to the gurus. We relate to our senior God brothers, for that matter, the senior devotees. So I would like to know, we don't know much. So what are the authenticities whereby you can realize that the message that this senior devotee is giving is a bona fide message? What are the measures for us to use as a neophyte or the upcoming Bhaktas? Because often, me, I'm a kind of person that when I hear something from one senior devotee, I do cross-check. But sometimes I hear different views. So sometimes I don't know where to draw the lines. So I'd like to know what are the measures whereby we can authenticate any message given to us by the senior devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Jayameka. Thank you. Yeah, in fact, my preference is to be on the other side to ask questions. I studied philosophy, and my hero is Socrates. Socrates rarely spoke. He always asked questions. And it's beautiful because out of the millions of philosophers we have in this world, the only philosopher that Srila Prabhupada makes reference to is Socrates. And if you pay attention, almost everything Socrates said cannot be challenged. They're all in our scriptures. Well, so back to your question. When Srila Prabhupada uses the word bona fide, the synonym of bona fide is authentic. It's authentic, it's authorized, it's genuine, it's real. And so oftentimes some people would say that if you are not, like we say, I do not have $1 million. So how can I give you $1 million? So I cannot give you what I do not have. That is the general consensus, which also makes sense because you cannot give what you do not have. But that is not the case in devotional service and Krishna consciousness. You can give what you do not have. Why and how? It's just like if you go to the bank and apply for loan, the clerk behind the bank
Prabhu,
I think there is an echo or there is a noise at the background.
George Omega, mute yourself. George Omega, mute yourself. Somebody's phone is bringing echo into the class. Everybody should know where he stays, what machine is beside you.
I think it's Prabhu Sahadeva's network.
Sahadeva, your network or echo?
No. Well, I think it's okay now.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Sure, it's quite okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that when, especially in the West and US here, lots of people do online shopping, right? You sit here and then you go on Amazon or you go to eBay, you go to Walmart and you order for stuff, or you go to Lowe's, Home Depot, you order for stuff. You sit there, and then a mailman drives and then brings you whatever you purchased. The mailman who brought you whatever you purchased maybe doesn't have it, doesn't have what he gave you, but he's been able to give it to you. And so in devotional service, I mean, it's best if we have it. But if we do not have it, and we sincerely receive what the master has given us, and we also pass it on, we can also give it to others. And so, yes, we may not have direct contact with the spiritual master, but if the representative of the spiritual master solely delivers what the spiritual master has given him to others, then even though that particular individual may not be pure, but what is given you is pure, it's authentic. And so, for instance, I'm here speaking. I'm not pure. I'm not qualified to speak. But as long as I am repeating what Mother Kunti has said, as long as I'm repeating what Sri Prabhupada has said, and adding to my own little experience to support what I've read, it's bona fide, it's authentic. And again, you mentioned about the differences. I have actually been concerned about that on our platform because we have many speakers come to speak, and every speaker speaks the scriptures, but at the same time brings in his or her own realizations, which is recommended. And somebody's realizations may be different from another person's realization. And so when that happens, there seem to be contradictions, but there are no contradictions. They're all the same. In fact, even in our own scriptures, in our own parampara, there are differences in some of the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes. But they all add up to the sweetness of the pastimes. They do not contradict. For instance, some acharyas believed that when there is lightning in the sky, they believe that that is the earrings of Mother Radharani, Srimati Radharani. And some acharyas also believe that when there is lightning in the sky, that is a sign of Kamsa's wife earring. It's amazing. Uh, even if you read the translations, sorry, the purports of Srila Prabhupada, and you compare that to Vishwanath Chakravarti's purport, it's very similar. So one time, one guest visited Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and he was having a debate, philosophical debate with the devotees. And so what this person said was that I do not see much difference between your guru's Bhagavad Gita translation and that of Vishwanath Chakravarti's translation. And so when the disciples told Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada says, Acha, if our purport, if our translation, if our work can be compared to Vishwanath Chakravarti, then our attempt is a success. Because there are different gurus on our line who have given commentaries. Like if you read the commentary of the Srimad Bhagavatam by Sri Vyasadeva, it's slightly different from the Bhagavatam purport that Madhava Acharya gave. But they are all the same. They all just add up to the nectarian juice of the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scriptures. So, yes, there may be differences in what the speakers say, but they all end up to be the same. For example, some of our gurus, not any, excuse me, say ordinary devotee speaking, we've had gurus speak on our platform that say that only pure devotees should speak Bhagavatam. We've had another gurus who also say it doesn't necessarily have to be pure devotees. It says fake it until you make it. And so you may say, wow, two different gurus. One says only pure devotees should speak Bhagavatam. Another guru says fake it until you make it. So where do I draw the line? Well, to draw the line is that have somebody whom you trust as a senior devotee, and if one does not have a clear picture of a situation, you approach this devotee for clarification. And so I have other senior devotees that if something is not clear to me, I approach them, I ask them, and I seek their opinion. So that is what I think as devotees we need to do. Hare Krishna. Ganga Prashad Prabhu, if you have anything else to add, Salika Prabhu, Kusha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
But Prabhu, yeah, the reason why I asked this thing is I quite remember on this very noble platform, there was a back and front between you and Prabhu Ishwara based on these subject matters. So on that day, in fact, I couldn't know where I should draw my lines until I think that day it was Kavi Kanapura that's who was hosting. Came with some ideas. Then before I've been able to come to the equilibrium. So often the proper use the word bona fide. That's why I have to chip in this thing to get the clarification. So thank you for the answer anyway. Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I very well remember the back and forth I had with Ishwara Prabhu. And see, that is the beauty of devotional service because it is a spiritual movement that is designed to make everybody feel comfortable and feel at home. In other words, one does not just speak and say, bravo, hallelujah, over. You have to answer what you said. And if what you said is not very clear, then people have the right to ask. Now, in Krishna consciousness, in ISKCON, oftentimes, in fact, Prabhupada also did mention a little bit of that in the purport, that sometimes people are more interested in flowery and fanciful language. Sometimes we want to speak in such a way that nobody has heard what we're saying before. Like a story nobody has ever heard before, like an idea nobody has ever heard before. But that is not what ISKCON is about. ISKCON is about repeating what you've heard. And then you add your own personal experience, realizations to what has already been said. But sometimes as devotees, because we may read from different sources, it sometimes mars our pure teachings. And so sometimes there is a little bit of Mayavad philosophy in what we speak sometimes. And so when one speaks along that line and one catches it, you should ask. For instance, I remember Prabhuji was saying that one should be as tolerant as the mountain, as the tree. And Lord Chaitanya himself also said that you have to be tolerant as the tree. Now, if one is speaking that one has to be as tolerant as the tree, you have to expand on it, because we are human beings. In the winter, when it's really, really cold, nobody can stay outside. But the tree is able to stay outside. The tree is still standing outside. All the leaves will shed. There will be no leaves. But come spring, the tree will bounce back and the leaves will come back. But if I stood outside in that cold winter, I will freeze and die. So if you are telling me that I have to be as tolerant as tree, how? How do I tolerate as a human being, not a tree? And that is what, as a speaker, one should be a bit conscious of how to deliver the message. Even though what you're saying is true, but how is it applied is also very important. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your answers. I have one last question for you. In the purport, Prabhupada said the reason is that the first item, Sravana, is very important.
Yeah.
If hearing it from the right source, it acts very quickly.
Yes.
So we all know the story of Narada Muni, who
Yeah.
goes everywhere chanting Narayana, Narayana,
Yeah.
even to demons, to kings.
Yeah.
They are hearing this Narayan holy name from the most right source.
Yeah.
The same way that Prahlad had it from the womb of the mother, from Narayan, from Narada Muni also.
Yeah.
So my question is on this hearing from the right source. Narada Muni was chanting this name, even among demons, and they never changed, became devotees.
Yeah.
So this hearing, is it only in the material world or in this Kali Yuga? Because the story says hearing from the right source. And the people who
Yeah.
hear from Narada, not all of them became devotees.
Yeah. It's true. You may hear from the right source and still not benefit from it. Just as many people saw Krishna, but they never recognized him as the Supreme Lord. Many, many people came across Srila Prabhupada. Not all of them became devotees. So there is an analogy given in the scriptures that the soul is like a spark of fire dropping from the sky. So a spark of fire, if it drops in the water, it vanquishes instantly. If that spark of fire drops on a wet land, it stays as fire, but only for a very short while. It diminishes. If it falls on a dry surface, it stays there a little longer, but eventually it disappears. But if that spark falls on dry leaves, then it turns to flames. So one may hear from the right source, but if one himself has not prepared himself to receiving it, then the efficacy will not be very immediate. It will take a longer period of time. So yes, even though we may hear from Narada Muni, but if we ourselves have not prepared ourselves to hearing from him, then the desired effect will not be there, at least not immediately. Just as many people came across Srila Prabhupada, they did not become devotees. Actually, one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, ever since we came across you, you've given us so much blessings. And we are enjoying and experiencing the mercy, the blessings you've given us. Why are you not giving it to the others? So Srila Prabhupada says, no, I'm giving to everyone. You have accepted it. Others have not accepted it. And so, why is it that we all join devotional service? We know the people we join devotional service with, and most of them are not here with us in devotional service today. So why some of us are still here and some of us are gone? It's because some of us sincerely made the effort to prepare ourselves to receive this message. And just by that, we are here. But those who were not really prepared to hearing this, even though they may hear, actually, I was thinking of the difference between listen and hear. And I was wondering why the scriptures emphasize on hearing and not listening. Because usually when you listen with a rapt attention. Hearing doesn't require rapt attention. So why do the scriptures talk of hearing instead of listening? Then I realized that the expected result of listening is hearing. You listen to something to hear. And so the end result is what the scripture says, that hearing. And so when we hear, it enters into our brain, it enters into our mind, it enters into our heart, and then we accept it. And so if one does not prepare himself to hearing the transcendental pastimes and messages of the Supreme Lord, even though it may be spoken by Narada Muni, but the desired results will not be there, at least not immediately. Thank you. Ganga Prashad Prabhu, thank you. Ganga Prashad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji. Good to see you,
Yeah,
Prabhuji.
I was a little off. I had internet problems.
Okay.
I missed a little portion of after when the question commenced.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
You answered rightly. I only wanted to add little points.
Please do.
Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1. No, Canto 1, chapter 3, text number 44. It mentions two things that will give the benefit of hearing. One, it calls the secret. The secret is from the right source. Then it mentions also the process. So two things are mentioned in that purport. Secret, you hear from somebody like Narada Muni, Sahadeva Goswami, is a secret. If you hear from some other person, it will not give the result. But the process, like you just analyzed now, that listening is to achieve hearing. And hearing has to be done in the purport as a process that requires rapt attention. You go to that purport, 1344, downside, the last para, it says, that is the real process for receiving Bhagavatam. Once you hear with rapt attention, the last, towards the end, the last 10 texts.
Yeah.
Once you hear with rapt attention from the real person, that is the two, the process and the secret. The secret is the real person, and the process is with rapt attention. And then he can at once realize the presence of the Lord in every stage. So that is the secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. No one can give rapt attention. It continues. Why is it that the demons had, they did not benefit? That was the real question Prabhu asked. No one can have rapt attention if he's not pure in mind. The demons are not pure in mind. Why? No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. The actions are not pure. They have a Surim Baba. And then no one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, mating is the same thing as fearing and defending. And Prabhupada ends it to say, but somehow or other, if one hears with rapt attention from the right person, at the very beginning, one can assuredly see the Lord, see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of Bhagavatam. This is quoting Prabhupada, quoting the scripture, and direct evidence.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. How Prabhupada kind of answered every question even before we answered. We asked. No, he answers questions before we ask. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you too. My question was also centered around this. The question I wanted to ask, the emphasis on hearing or Sravanam has been important.
Yes.
And if Sravanam is important, and he said that in all the 9 limbs of Bhakti, 9 limbs of Bhakti, starting from Sravanam, Kirtana until Prema, that the first 3 is most important.
Yes.
Hearing, chanting, remembering.
Remembering, yes.
Yeah, I remember having one encounter with Prabhu when he gave the class about praying.
Yeah.
And he emphasized so much that praying is very, very important, almost most important. So I wanted you to throw a light on what is so potent in hearing. What is the potency in hearing? But you mentioned that if a thief comes to your house and you are asleep, you can be alerted from hearing.
Yeah.
And why are the other processes not mentioned as the most important, but they are not independent. They are all corroborated.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to shed little light on it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ganga Prasad Prabhu. And I truly liked the 1-3, Srimad Bhagavatam 1-3, is it 14 or 44?
44.
44.
1, 3, 44.
Yeah, 1, 3, 44. It's amazing how Srila Prabhupada put words in the purport. It's too beautiful. Sometimes I ask myself, what did I exactly do in my previous life to have this opportunity in this lifetime? And I think from time to time, we sometimes minimize the greatest opportunity we have in this lifetime, having and come in contact with this devotional service. Well, what I can say about your question is, we know the scriptures emphasize so much importance on hearing. And the nature of the job that I do, I deal a lot with dying people, people who are dying, you know. And there is a science of dying. There are a few books long time ago, there was nothing written on the science of dying. But recently, there has been quite a few number of scientific and psychological, philosophical books on the art of dying. And so, in all those sciences, they indicate that the human body has all these different senses. But when one is about to die, all the senses shut off except one sense, the sense of hearing. And so when somebody is dying, whether the person cannot see, cannot open the eyes, cannot even respond, even cannot even respond to pain or whatever, that person still hears. And so you never say anything negative around the dying person. You always say positive things. And that is why it's so important that when somebody is dying, when a devotee is dying, we chant the holy names of the Lord. We read from the scriptures. We do something spiritual for the dying person to hear. Because when the hearing is received, like Srila Prabhupada said, then everything else that is designed to help us become successful in our spiritual life is automatically assured. Because everything we do, everything we say is all because of what we heard. Whatever we consider to be good, not to be good, is all based on what we heard. I mean, we heard from our parents that it is not good to fart in public. So we don't do that. We don't fart in public. Why? Because our mothers told us it is not good. It started by hearing. And so I do not really know exactly how much emphasis I can put on the importance of hearing, other than to say, just like Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, that once we hear, like you also collaborated with Srila Prabhupada's purport in 1344, that hearing means that you are consciously hankering to hear. This is where breaks the difference. It's just like in a mundane analysis, if your wife, if your fiance is in a distant place, you haven't really heard from him or her for a very long time, and you receive a message that, oh, your fiance is on the phone. The love, the affection, the eagerness to hear from him or her is different from when you owe somebody and that person is calling you on the phone to demand his money. In both senses, in both terms, you are hearing from people on the telephone, but one is annoying, one is so blissful because you love this person, you want to hear from him. So when there is some sort of love within our heart and love of God, and we want to hear about Krishna, if we love Krishna, we have some little love for Krishna, and we want to hear about Krishna, and we're hearing about Krishna from the right sources, that is when the effect takes place. That is when the effect takes place, almost immediately. And so the hearing is not just raw hearing, there must be some love behind it. When we have love for Krishna and we hear about his pastimes, when we have love for Radha and we hear, like when we have love for Srila Prabhupada, I mean, I'm nobody, I'm just a useless person, but I have some little love for Srila Prabhupada. I have some little love for Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. And because I have some little love for these personalities, I cannot watch the video of their passing because I deal with dying people. At least every week I would deal with somebody dying. That is the least I can say. Yet I cannot see Srila Prabhupada's tape when he was passing. Why? Because of the little love I have for him. And so when we have little love, then we'll be eager to hear about such a person. And when we hear about such a person that we so dearly love, then that love will be instilled in our hearts. And once that love is instilled in our hearts, everything else to help us progress in spiritual life follows. So that is how important the sense of hearing is.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much.
Speaking about when we love somebody, you explained nicely. Can it be said that when we love devotees, we also allow devotees to see us, see our lotus faces?
Definitely. Well, just 3 days or so ago, there is one devotee, I won't mention the name. There is one devotee I cherish and I love so much, and I haven't really spoken to him for quite a long time. So I sent him a text message and he called me. Actually, he sent me a text message that, hey, he received my text message. And I was texting him back that, oh, so can I call? And I saw him texting. He says, I can see you texting, so I'm here. So I called. And I called vocal audio. And he responded by video. So he saw me, I saw him. And I was lying on the floor. I was so excited seeing him, right? So, yes, in fact, it is said that one should actually fast when he sees a devotee and does not become happy. When you see a devotee and you do not become happy seeing a devotee, you should fast because that is a very, very sinful activity. Devotees are very special.
B.T. Swami said, if you see a devotee and you're not happy, that is an offense.
Yes, it is. It is an offense. Devotees are very special. Look, devotees may come together and may argue back and forth, but all those are still relationship. It's very pleasing. It's very pleasing. But
Thank you, Prabhu.
even though every devotee is special, but every devotee has very special devotees. And it's more blissful when you have interaction with such very special devotees. Like
Yeah,
in the case
in
of
Ghana, in Ghana, Brahma Sameta and Drida Vrata,
yeah.
we're going on Harinam, and Brahma Sameta tried to touch the feet of Drida Vrata. I don't forget this story. The Drida Vrata say, hey, don't touch my lotus feet. Brahma Sameta laughed like anything. He said, "What did not have lotus feet?" I said, "Of course, and lotus faces."
Yes.
It was nice.
I also remember a long time ago, I was a Dr. Smith. So we were under Prashadam, and there was this devotee, Krishna Dwapayan. Krishna Dwapayan is a very, very sweet, nice, and fanciful devotee. I think he's now in the UK. But he trained me in book distribution. So we were taking Prashadam, and then they asked me, so Dr. Smith, who do you want to become in the future as a devotee? I said, I want to become a guru. He says, you crazy Bhakta. Who is going to drink water from your ear? Oh, I'm sorry. But those were some of the pastimes we were enjoying when we were enjoying prashadam. No, we were just sharing. What do you want to do? What are you expecting to become as a devotee? How do you want to end your life as a devotee? So initially, yes, I was really trying to become a sannyasi. You know,
guru.
I was trying to become a sannyasi and become a guru. Then I realized that no, the passion was too much. I can't contain it. I said, okay, let me settle as a grihastha. You know, and you all know, I mean, lots of you here are very senior devotees. Those days, if you are brahmachari, you become a grihastha, it means you are fallen, you know. so
Fallen soul.
you are fallen soul. So I was the first grihastha to rent a house near the temple in Accra. And I mean, there was so much backlash. So many devotees were lashing out against me. And they even reported me to Bhakti Maharaj that Sahadeva is a good Sankirtan devotee. He goes on Sankirtan and does not submit the Sankirtan Lakshmi. He's using the Lakshmi to rent an apartment. So Bhakti Maharaj came to our zone. Everybody was eager. Everybody was ready to hear Maharaj nail me to the cross. And to their surprise, he praised me. He says, look at Sahadeva. He became a grihastha and he did not bloop. He rented a house near the temple. And I mean, my authorities already told Gurudev my activities. So it says, but he rented an apartment and he's still serving as if he is right under the roof of the temple. So, I mean, we've passed through so many wonderful pastimes, but as bitter or painful as they may seem, it is also so relishable that if you remember them today, you laugh over them and you become happy, you know. So we may be going through some hardships today, but those hardships of today will become the nectar tomorrow. So there is no loss. Thank you so much for reminding
Thank you, Prabhu, for your class.
Hare Krishna, as a Krishna Prabhu,
Yes, Prabhu, go on, please.
I just wanted to make a little input about lotus face and the love and the darshan. That sometimes, yes, devotees want to show their lotus face out of love, but when they have technological problems like data or network issues, that may be an obstacle for them to show you their lotus face. You also have to tolerate it. And then, because many times people want to ask questions like George Amega or even Sadi Prabhu, and their network is shaking. So we tell them, off your camera and ask your question. Isn't it? So,
Yes,
yes, love. Okay.
but that is when network is not good, or when the person want to ask a question, but not when you're not speaking. You should show lotus face.
No, you know that as the question and answer started, when you asked the first question, my phone started misbehaving. It went off. But because I was very keen to continue in the class, I managed off the phone, switch it on, and then I came back.
Yeah.
So I was being prudent with managing the phone. So please forgive me that my lotus face was not showing.
So let me review the confidential story behind the lotus face.
Confidential aspect of the question.
Yes.
Yes,
The confidential aspect of it.
yes, please.
Each time I flash Mother Loka, she off her camera. So then did not get the point. If I show his wife, she always off it. Same minute. You see?
Okay, so second point, Sahadeva Prabhu. Sahadeva Prabhu.
You see again. You see?
They are doing it again. She has done it again.
I Anyway,
Oh, Krishna, you're making me sick to my stomach from laughter. Oh, Krishna.
okay, Sahadeva Prabhu,
Prabhuji.
Sahadeva Prabhu,
Hare
I
Krishna.
wanted to also encourage you
Yeah.
that your lofty idea of becoming a guru has not been dumped. You are still a guru now. Based on Mahaprabhu's measurements,
Yes.
Mahaprabhu said, wherever you go, whomsoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. That's what exactly you are doing now in this class.
Yeah.
You are telling us about Krishna. So you have not derailed. You are a guru in your capacity. And so keep the ambition alive.
Yeah.
Okay? After all, we just saw now, Shiva Zanachari is initiating guru, but
Yeah.
he's a grihasta.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of if you stop being a brahmachari or if you change saffron, that's the real word.
Yeah.
Because whether you're a grihasta or you're a brahmachari, you should be brahmachari.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
So it's not about color of clothes.
Yeah.
There are many gurus now who are grihasta. They are gurus. So don't give up your ambition. You are still a guru. And the fact that you are sitting and giving us nectar, you are still a guru. So please, I don't want to encourage you. And our misconceptions are born out of lack of philosophical clarity.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Without clear philosophical understanding, we will see that there's so much of beauty in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. I mean, I don't preach as I used to. This part of the world is a bit different. Preaching is not as easy as in Africa. But at work, almost all my co-workers know me as a priest. You know? And sometimes I preach to them, but sometimes I would stay away from preaching for some time because I do not want it to be like I'm always pushing it on them. And so after a while, they would say, "Oh, Jarvis, you starving us. For a long time, you've never preached to us, you know." So thank you for the encouragement. But I try to speak whatever little I know. And it seems those I speak to seems to appreciate. And
Don't
it's
worry,
all by the
Prabhu.
Guru of, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna.
Don't worry, you are a guru with a difference.
Krishna Prabhu, let me remind you of something. The last time Kavichandra Maharaj gave class on our platform, His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj,
When
he
is Krishna going to give
he
class?
asked you a very interesting question.
Yeah, my beard.
He says, how many animals do you have in
In
the
my
forest
beard.
of your beard?
Your forest.
Yes.